There are a lot of people that learn how to deadlift and they don't ever learn the right setup for them. And chances are you've learned from a friend, maybe another trainer, physical therapist, or coach, and they've just told you what's worked for them, but your body might be different. There are certain people with long torsos and short legs, long legs and short torsos, narrow rib cages and wide pelvises, narrow pelvises and wide rib cage. There are so many different anatomical variations. And if you want to learn what's going to work right for you, check out this video. We're going to be breaking down a handful of things to help you find that perfect setup. This is Lucas. Lucas is currently a student at Moment.
How's it going?
I told you you had the bow, you didn't have to, but I love it. So you're gonna lay on your back, Lucas, legs over there. So the first thing that we're gonna screen is going to be hip flexion. I can't believe you bowed. Legs straight. So the first thing we're gonna look for is, can Lucas actually get into hip flexion, right? So oftentimes as we start to go into hip flexion, some people start to feel a hinge in this position immediately. And what we're looking for is, there's two things. As we go into hip flexion, the glutes, the backside of your hip, that has to lengthen as your knees get closer to your chest. Other things that have to move really well is your rib cage. Your rib cage has to be able to depress and retract. So it needs to not flare like so, but come down and back. And there's a lot of people that stay in this position. That can influence hip flexion range of motion. But when we're in a table like this, I wanna make sure that this motion feels pretty clean. He gets a little bit stiffer here. And if I move them out, I can move them a little bit further. So that's the first thing that we're gonna be looking for is, how's the hip flexion if I just keep it in line with his chest? How's this hip flexion if I move it out and open it up? There's gonna be a lot of people that feel a lot better with the legs out here opposed to in here. And all that starts to tell us is that you probably will do better with a wider stance. One of the first things we teach whenever we're helping someone get back to deadlifting is gonna be long arms. The great thing about long arms is when you're actively reaching towards the ground, you're gonna pack your shoulders to a degree. So Lucas, I just want you to set up for your deadlift position. Lucas on the table would benefit from a slightly wider position, so he doesn't need to be here. You can just open up his hips a little bit, and that's probably more comfortable for him. He's gonna reach his arms actively towards the bar. So I like to use the cue of a shrug your shoulder as much as you can, and then reverse that as much as you can. And then from there, you're gonna come down and reach for the bar. The key here is if the arms are long, it's less strain to the elbow. If you was to keep the elbow slightly bent, it will put a lot of stress to the elbow joint. So keeping the arms long, we're just gonna come up from there. Beautiful. And I'll let people get a couple of reps with their arms long, and we'll move on to the next cue. Let's go 2 more reps like that. And as long as you're actively reaching towards that ground, you're gonna feel your shoulders pack and create some tension there. Perfect, let's move on to the next thing now. One of the next things that we look for when we're coaching a deadlift is gonna be starting from the top down. I want someone to shift their hips back as much as they can, and when they can't anymore, they're gonna start to let their hip dip and knee bend at the same time. So this is what it's gonna look like. Lucas, same thing, long arms, come up with the deadlift. And now you're gonna hinge your hips without moving too much at the knee. Get the hips back as far as you can. When you feel like you run out of space, pause there, and then slowly let the hip and the knee bend at the same time, coming down to the bottom. Perfect. Now let's come back, same setup. Hinge your hips as much as you can. And once you feel like you can't move back anymore, knee and hip bend together. One of the most common mistakes that you're gonna see is people are way too squatty at the bottom of a deadlift. And this is gonna help us access as much hip movement as possible before we start to get the knee to bend afterwards. Perfect. The next thing that we're gonna be doing is teaching you how to wedge yourself into the bar prior to lifting. And we're gonna go through that whole checklist again. So Lucas, I want you to go long arms, reach down with long arms, deadlift it up. Come down slowly with the hips first. Good, and again, once you feel like you've lost space in the hips, you got no more space, you're gonna let the knee and hip bend at the same time. Perfect. Now in this position, I want you to bring the hip down and your chest up. That creates a wedge, and you're gonna create a lot of tension in the body and the torso, and from there, you're gonna come up. So same thing now, hip back as much as you can. Once you run out of space, let the hip and the knee bend. And while you're in this position, dip the hips and get the chest proud, and that's the wedge. It's a subtle lean back, and it creates a ton of tension. The bar almost lifts itself if you do the wedge technique correctly. Beautiful there. part of the deadlift that's gonna tie everything together is thinking about it like a leg press. Too often, people are too much on their toes. And if we're on our toes, it allows us to move forward more efficiently, right? Because if we walk and we push off our toes, it allows us to travel forward. If we're on our heels, we're gonna lose balance. And the only way to keep our balance is by extending our spine. When we get down into the whole checklist for the deadlift, I want Lucas to think about pushing through the midfoot, right? We should be coming up and coming down and coming straight up by pushing through the foot to come up. Too often we think about it as like a lean back position, which puts more stress to the lower back. I want you to just stand nice and tall and get the glutes through at the top. So checklist again, long arms, slowly come down, grab the bar, deadlift it up. Beautiful. Hips back as much as you can. And then let the knee and the hip bend. Now do a little bit of a wedge. And now pressure through midfoot to bring the hips through. Beautiful. And perfect. So those are the steps to the deadlift checklist. There are a lot of things to think about initially, right? But if you're learning a new skill, you got to treat it like a skill. There are certain things that you can include into your setup. And in the beginning, you're going through this checklist in your head, but over time, you're gonna get so efficient that you really could just go in, grip it and rip it, as they would say, as you're deadlifting a lot of heavy weights. One of the most common things that we see in our clinic here at Moment is people that wanna lift heavy. They wanna get back to doing things like CrossFit, powerlifting, training with the barbell. And oftentimes they're told by a doctor that, why are you lifting so heavy? This is gonna be bad for your back, or you're only gonna hurt yourself. And that couldn't be further from the truth. When done correctly, the barbell is an efficient way to train and does a great job of building lower body strength and overall resilience. And if you're someone that's been struggling to get back to barbell training, feel free to book a free phone consultation down below, and we can see if what we do at Moment is a good fit for what you're experiencing.